So thank you and good afternoon, everyone. So obviously e-commerce is the buzzword here. We're talking a lot about the success of e-commerce, what's driving that across the country, across many countries actually right now. And I think today's session is this session is all about investment into e-commerce. All the the illustrious panelists here, they are the first stage, second stage, different types of investments that they are doing into e-commerce companies. And I think it'll be good to just hear their views on how the businesses, how the e-commerce industry is evolving, what comes next in terms of investments, what should investors be looking out for, and what should many of you who are looking to either start e-commerce companies who are either in brick and mortar, evolving into an omni-channel strategy, what should you be looking at, and I think we'll try and keep the session pretty interactive, but we'll start with a few basic questions or some questions which are burning questions in terms of what are some of the things to look at from an investment point of view. So so let's start with Padmaja as the only lady in the panel, so I'm going to put you on the spot first. And I guess the question to you, Padmaja, is if you look at we've already got big marketplace models now, and obviously these have become very large businesses and very hard to penetrate that and create another Flipkart or a Snapdeal from that perspective. But what do you think is going to be the next in terms of, are we going to look at niche e-commerce sites coming up? Is that a reality? So just your thoughts on that.
Thanks, Rajat. So I think, the one thing from my perspective is the e-commerce large companies, the Flipkarts, the Snapdeals, I think they've done a great service. They have actually unleashed the entire leverage of internet. And for our country, which is so large, I think it's a huge opening that has been made into the ecosystem. Having said that, yes, the vanilla, what Flipkart does or what Snapdeal does, those are spaces that are really taken now for at least very early stage entrepreneurs and surely for very early stage investors. But it has thrown up a very different arena where many young entrepreneurs can leverage internet and do commerce or do business on the net. And we are seeing at IAN specifically a lot of very interesting companies which are not traditional vanilla trading, commodity, consumer goods kind of businesses. And I think logistics, if you look at services, even something like repairing mobile phones across the country like Gadgetwood does, or leveraging technology for creating ease of logistics like Zipper does, all of these businesses are coming across on the platform. And the second point I think I'd like to make is there is still space, and we are seeing that, is where niche businesses with a back-end manufacturing or logistics offline ability to deliver to those consumers. That is the other part that we are seeing.
Sid, do you want to have a go at that and just give your view on that?
Sure. So actually I think what Flipkart and Snapdeal have done, and Amazon and so on and so forth, they're helping people come online. And I think that's really going to help other industries within e-commerce build up. I think a lot of what's going to come up now is spaces where you can compete head on with these guys because of your business model, because of the intricacies of selling certain kinds of goods, etc. And I'm actually, we've kind of put our money where our mouth is as a fund and started believing in brands. Brands have really never existed in India in any major way. And I think a lot of the reason for that is just because it's difficult to leverage offline retail in any massive way. And with technology and because of the penetration of Flipkart and other large marketplaces and inventory-led models, you have people already connected. And if you have people already connected and you can leverage that to sell your brand in specific verticals, I think that those are huge businesses. I think we're one of the few countries in the world where the niches are larger than whole industries, across industries in other countries. So, we invested in food recently with $100 billion, furniture, $40 billion. And these numbers are random because we're under-furnished, we're under-fed, we're under-jeweled, we're under-spectacled. So those are all, by the way, trademark. Please don't use those terms outside of this.
So from your point of view, so because of low category penetration, you're saying that helps brands. But is niche almost like an oxymoron in the e-commerce world? That, I mean, Shailesh, you want to just ask, is e-commerce? I mean, do you need to have scale? And by that definition, can niche exist, or will niche brands eventually get gobbled up by the likes of, Amazon and Flipkart and Snapdeal?
Yeah,
I mean,
I think as Sid pointed out, right? So what Flipkart and Amazon and Snapdeal of the world, they have more created marketplaces, right? And there's a huge opportunity for the brands to grow. Like, so we have seen Lenskart, right? So Lenskart, I think number of ship done is far bigger than Tata, eye care today. So it is a company just started 3 years back and is bigger than Tata Eyewear. So I see there's a huge opportunity for the brands to grow. We don't see any brands, and I think in apparel you can see, in furniture, in retail. So the brand play is still yet to play out. And I won't use the word niche for that, because each brand can become a 1,000 crore brand very easily on the internet, which has taken a lot of time to build offline. And we strongly believe that building a brand online in India is far simpler than building a brand offline. It's much cheaper that way. So I see there's a opportunity there.
Vikram, what about you?
So I think to address your specific question, so basically I think there are two kind of things I see here. One is, of course, we're talking about horizontals and verticals, and we take example of Zivame versus lingerie brands. We are actually investing in a lingerie brand, which we believe is a huge area in itself, even though Zivame is building up its own huge marketplace. The real opportunity where we are saying is, there is a huge untapped market. In India, the 60% of the population is living in the rural areas. And while many of us probably have not expected that there is a large internet penetration or mobile phone penetration, smart mobile phone penetration in the rural markets, one of our investments, Reuters Market Light, we're quite pleasantly surprised. We just launched an app called MyRML, which is basically giving prices of crops and weather information, etc. Within 5 months, 100,000 downloads. These are farmers who are actually downloading this app. On top of that, we created a platform, which is called Krishi Doot, which is for buying and selling crops online. And unbelievably, just over 12 months, we have 210 crores worth of transactions which have happened on that platform. So it's not just a phenomena which is happening in the metros of the urban India. Now we are seeing that phenomenon actually moving to rural India.
I guess when I look at brands going in on the omni-channel, I mean, you can see new brands come and do that. But what's stopping existing brands from building big omni-channel, businesses? Vikram, you want to just talk about that and how? Sorry, take this one.
So my take on the present situation of the e-commerce or the e-retail in the market vis-a-vis the brand. I think we have just started the journey in India, and whatever we have heard about, whatever we have seen, whatever we are reading, whatever we are talking about, I think it's the validation of a $500 billion market, where these first runners are able to validate the market and the dynamics around it. Now, coming to the point of the brands, I think they have to bring the frugal innovation along with the innovation, where technology has to play a key role around that.
What stops them? I mean, today you look at all the apparel brands, look at all the eyewear brands. Why is it that Lenscraft has come and beaten them to it? I mean, is it just because brick and mortar finds it very hard to think of e-commerce, or just think this is just a bubble and it's going to go away? And it's a bad dream.
So I think the next after e-commerce, the e-retail, is andcommerce, which I have been advocating quite a lot about it. And what andcommerce is brick and mortar going to shake hand with the e-commerce. And hence, with that scenario, these brands will work along with the e-commerce guys. And that will enable them and give them a confidence to come in the market and on with the e-commerce guys.
Yeah, sure, Karan, go ahead.
And sorry again for being late, guys. So and I wanted to just address this question because, a couple of our companies were mentioned in Lenskart and Zivame, so thank you for that. But also, if you look at, I'd like to give the example of FirstCry. FirstCry is actually the largest baby company in the country today. It's a 3-4-year-old company. We've got 110 stores. It's bigger than Mom and Me, which is a Mahindra company, which, to your question, actually tried doing online commerce. They've bought an e-commerce company. They've got 100+ stores, about the same size, but in terms of revenues and a lot of other metrics, I know we're bigger than them and growing at a much quicker rate. A lot of that has to do with, the way that you start the business model, which is online. Then you get offline people to come and transact in the stores, but eventually you put them more into comfortable positions of transacting either on their desktops, on their phones. 50% of our revenue comes from mobile phones today. So it's an omni-channel strategy. It's O2O, offline to online, online to offline, and everything in between. And it's really because the approach is very different. You're creating a marketplace for other brands. You're also creating your own brands. So that channel conflict never comes up, right? And also the way you're going about it is very low capex, not really a lot of upfront investments in fixed costs, and just distributed systems throughout the supply chain. Having that last mile delivery, having warehouses, I think all of these are very, very key if you want to be an omni-channel retail company. And Lenskart is doing that. They've got about 30 stores now offline.
Sure. Rahul, in terms of when you look at investing in companies, especially between e-commerce, would you look at brick and mortar going into e-commerce as if you were to look at, if you got two proposals on your desk, one is a straightforward online business, one is a brick and mortar going into online.
Sure.
How would you sort of view that, given that same metrics in terms of potential of business, etc.?
Yeah. So, I think in retail, there's always been this paradigm of location. And the challenge is that, this is the location now, right? So if you're starting out with a mental model of saying, I need to pick the right catchment area, I need to be in the right mall, I need to optimize around footfall, that's a very different starting point from saying, I want to deliver a really engaging buying experience on a device that can happen seamlessly in 5 minutes, right? So I think fundamentally, I would bias myself towards people whose starting point is saying, this is the location, as opposed to thinking physical first. Now, that said, it finally comes down to who's got great consumer insight, who can build a great brand. But I think the notion of what is location and what is important today is very different.
Sure. So I think just from that point of view,
I want to add something real quick to what Karan was saying a little earlier on. I think part of it also is the way we measure success in online businesses that are pure online businesses compared to how brick and mortar companies might measure or then deploy capital as a result of how they measure success. And I think part of the reason it becomes difficult to compete is because the people measuring success of online businesses are sitting on your panel. And we look at it very differently and then deploy more money after more money on those businesses that we want them to do something very different, short term and medium term, to try to reach the same, like all roads are leading to Rome here, but short term and medium term, we will deploy a hell of a lot more capital. We'll deploy that capital based on metrics that are very different than what maybe Mom and Me are looking at Mahindra, and oh my God, what's wrong with me? FirstCry is looking at online. So part of it, of course, is saying, oh, I want to be omni-channel. Very few companies will, from a tech point of view, will think the same way as Mr. Mahindra might think coming from a Mom and Me standpoint.
But surely, from the way I see it, a lot of the brick and mortar guys, the people who are running brick and mortar, or what we call offline retail, they are learning quickly. They are also ready now. So at the end of the day, the consumer interaction, they have footfalls, they have quite a bit of consumers on their loyalty programs. Not necessarily well done, but at the end of the day, they have. So there is an opportunity now, clearly, for all of you to engage with them also in the same way, right? I think we'll just round this up, but if any of you wants to have a...
I think many of the panelists, Karan, Rahul, what they said was perfect. what this has given, the electronic medium that has given, is given an opportunity to a retailer in a specific geography or in a specific area. It's absolutely unshackled him and be able to access a much, much larger market with a much larger variety of price points or products or bouquet of services. And that is where I think the egalitarianism of, catering to a very different variety of consumers happen. And I think that's the opportunity that a lot of retailers can now actually access. Just in tune with net neutrality, I think that we're all fighting for. I think this is actually geographic neutrality in some ways.
And especially with the footprint of brick and mortar retail in India not being so broad, it's giving access to a lot of consumers who don't have products.
Absolutely, and we have a growing domestic market, so it makes complete sense to me.
So jumping into the next one, so then obviously this leads to the next question. How does brick and mortar cope with this? So I'm sure there are a lot of brick and mortar. Are there a lot of brick and mortar, retailers here? Any show of hands? Any people who are from offline retail? Or is it everybody here